Welcome into the Commanders Report live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you to all the real ones tuning in at the beginning of today's live program on a beautiful Wednesday evening. We got a bunch of great Commanders content coming your way over the next hour or so. We'll be joined by producer Joey Petersen here in just a moment. But on today's show, the latest Commanders news and rumors that you guys need to be made aware of. The NFL met in Minneapolis today to instill some rule changes and one very specific non-rule change today that we'll talk about. Then we'll get into some way too early 2026 mock drafts and who the top NFL draft analysts are projecting for the Commanders in round one of next year's NFL draft at this point in the process. And then we'll get into your questions on the Washington Commanders to finish today's show with the weekly Commanders Report live Q&A. If you guys want to get on a question or want to get a question on the show, all you have to do is go down there in the live chat, use hashtag Commanders along with your question down there in the live chat. So for example, you go down there, put a comment in the comments section, hashtag Commanders. Will the Commanders win the Super Bowl this year? And if you put that question in there, I will answer it. All right. So if you got a good question that you want me to answer on the show today, use hashtag Commanders along with your question down there in the live chat. And as always, if you want to guarantee your question gets on the show, you guys can super chat on today's program. If you don't know how to super chat, it is the dollar sign with the dollar bill looking symbol down there below this video, and you put in any dollar amount that you want. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Speaking of super chats, we got our first super chat of the day coming in from one of our most favorite sons here at the Commanders Report. He is here every single show, and he donates at least $10 to every single show. We appreciate this guy a ton. The one, the only, our super chat software is not loading, but there it is, John Masood. And of course, there's Joey Petersen. Joey. John Masood is saying what's up. Unfortunately, Coop is not here on the live show today, but we got Joey Petersen filling in his very salmon-looking. Is that a Masters shirt right there?
It is a Masters shirt.
Did you get that at Augusta National?
I got it from someone who got it at Augusta National.
Okay, cool. Well, that's did they run out of all the good colors, or
I guess so.
Did you get stuck with the pink one that they just grabbed off the rack? John, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for the $10 super chat. And Joey, the tush push is kind of the big thing that's been the big thing around the National Football League today because it's staying. And we had a report early this morning from Diana Rossini saying it's going to get banned. And then all of a sudden, Jason Kelce shows up and ruins the party. And apparently some of these teams switched their votes, and now it's staying for yet another season. What are your thoughts on the tush push staying for at least one more season in the NFL?
Man, and I think it is only one more season.
I think it is too.
I think this will be the last year. I go back and forth with my thoughts on the tush push. I'm kind of indifferent. If it would have been banned, I'd have been like, sweet. And it's not, and I'm kind of like, that's fine. Like, my thing is anybody can run it, and it's football, so stop it. But my second thing is also, it's like, it's not really a football play. It feels like rugby, and so it's like,
not entertaining.
Yeah, it's just like, it just doesn't feel like football. And so I go back and forth.
Yeah, I see both sides of it because it's like on the one hand, obviously there's one team that runs it at the success that they do it at, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. And you don't want to penalize a team for just perfecting a football play.
Exactly.
But and it's like find a way to stop it. I understand the Eagles fans' perspective on it, but I also understand the perspective where it's like you're not allowed to push off a player when you're trying to block a field goal because apparently it's a player safety issue. So like if it's a player safety issue for that, why is it not a player safety issue for the tush push? And by the way, I actually don't think there's much evidence that pushing a player in the back, is a big player safety issue. Yeah. Honestly, I think that the bigger player safety issue when it comes to the tush push is the defensive and offensive linemen.
100%.
Because like we've seen some neck injuries from this. Like just talking over the last several seasons, we've seen some defensive linemen get some pretty nasty neck injuries from the tush push. But I don't think it's any more or less dangerous than any other NFL play. I just want consistency. You know, if you're going to say the tush push is okay, then allow people to push off the back of a player and vault themselves to a blocked field goal.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Like if it's a player safety issue for one, it has to be a player safety issue for the other. And if it's not a player safety issue for one, I think it should not be a player safety issue for that one. That's all I want. I just want consistency in the rule. But also, I don't think that even if they did ban it, Joey, it would have been that much of a difference. Like the Eagles still have a quarterback that can squat 600 pounds. They still have the best offensive line in the game. Like, even just running a regular QB sneak, they would have been they would have been really good at it.
Yeah. The interesting thing that would have come with banning the tush push is the fact that you got to say after that, okay, we're banning the tush push. Can offensive linemen run up behind running backs when they're at that like zero momentum point with a linebacker? That would probably have to be banned. You'd have to ban pushing just totally in general out. And it's like, it just seems like a lot.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to matter all that much. I know some people are very vehemently against it, but I think at the end of the day, football is going to remain football here. It's not like, football's not entertaining, with the tush push or anything like that. So I don't really have a problem with it. Another 10 here from John Masood to get us going. He says, son, I'm 2 times your age, Jack. Well, you're one of this channel's sons. All right, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying you're my son, John. I mean, good. I mean, I'm sure you are twice my age, but you're one of the most favored sons of this channel here at the Commanders Report, John. So we appreciate your support. Also, Joey, we learned today that the Commanders will officially be featured on HBO's Hard Knocks on the in-season version. They do the divisional kind of format now. They did it for the AFC North last year with the Steelers, Ravens, Browns, and Bengals. This year, it's going to be the NFC East, and I think it's the right choice. This is a very, very fun division heading into the year.
100%. You got year 2 of Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels. You've got New York in the sense of they add Jackson Dart, they add
interesting
Abdul Carter.
Quarterback situation. Plus, you got the head coach and the GM on the hot seat, so that's going to be an interesting storyline.
And then Nick Sirianni's always going to be interesting with Philadelphia, the former
reigning champs,
the former Super Bowl champions, and then Dallas is always going to be great theater with whatever's going to be happening in the middle of that next season.
Can't wait to see George Pickens not show up to practice.
Yeah, Micah Parsons and George Pickens on the same team. What could go wrong?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. In terms of the distraction element here, we'll talk about it a little bit in our first segment today. I think it's going to be a distraction, and I think it's another thing here because we talked about it on yesterday's show, Joey. Lots of primetime games, lots of standalone games, and now you will have to deal with another thing here with Hard Knocks. It's a lot, man. There's a lot of national attention that the Washington Commanders are going to be getting this year, and that could lead to distractions on the field, which obviously could lead to poor results on the field or disappointing results on the field. I hope that doesn't happen, but that opportunity and that potential is certainly there.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you take into account, like you said, the primetime games, now Hard Knocks. It's either going to be set up to be the most legendary season ever for the Washington Commanders or one that might be filled with a little bit of disappointment.
Or a lot of disappointment on a national stage with everyone watching, right? That's the thing. There's a lot of pressure now being put on the Commanders. And, I just hope that Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, this entire crew, they're ready for the challenge, man. They were ready for the challenge last year. No one believed in them, and they ended up going 12-5 and making it to a Western Conference, or not Western Conference, NFC championship
Brain's
game.
on NBA.
I mean, goodness gracious. Yeah, my brain is on NBA, Wolves and Thunder. So, I have high hopes for this season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, Debo, Terry, all those guys on this show. But there's certainly an opportunity for it to be a little bit of a distraction. But hey, every team in the division has to deal with that distraction, so it is what it is. All right, we're about to get into our first segment here, but Joey's going to give some shout-outs to the people that spam me in the chat. But here's the rule. You can only spam me if you've liked the stream. We got 121 people watching live around the world. Only 25 likes. We need to get that up to 40 likes before we get into our first segment here. So without further ado, Joey, take it away.
Keep getting those me's in there. We got Cassie, we got Jasmine, we got Commanders fan, Jasmine. Keep them going. Oh, Kenny Lewis is saying me. We're at 26 likes. Let's get to 40 as quickly as we can. Boom, up to 34.
Come on now, we need 6 more likes.
It's Torchad is in here. Jasmine, MG, Commanders fan, Lamont, Commanders fan, Kenny Lewis, Dominic. We got the NFL guy, Lamont, Keith, Jasmine. Keep it going, keep it going. Like today's video. The Mayhew, John Masood, Harrison Long, Corey Costial, Commanders fan, the NFL guy. 2 likes away.
Come on, there it is. We got the 40.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, without further ado, I'm not going to make you guys wait any longer. Let's get into our first segment today. The latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders are coming your way right now. The Washington Commanders and their fans got a triple dose of bad news today. And today on the Commanders Report, we're going to be breaking down that bad news. And then also we'll be talking a little bit about free agency rumors as well to finish out today's show. But before we get into the content today, shout out to Jose Ortiz for the $2 super thanks that he put on our video yesterday. I said that anybody that put in a super thanks yesterday would get a shout out on today's show. Jose ended up being the only one that put in a super thanks, and it was just $2, but hey, we appreciate every single dollar that you guys send into our channel here at the Commanders Report, and we're going to give you a shout out, whether it's $2 or whether it's $100 to the channel. So if you guys want to get a shout out on a future edition of the Commanders Report, you guys can send in a super thanks on this video. If you want to send in a thanks, there's a button down below this video that looks like a money sign with a heart around it. You guys can select that and then pick any dollar amount, send that in, and we will feature you on a future edition of the Commanders Report, just like we did with Jose Ortiz. Jose, big shout out to you for your donation. All right, so let's get into the bad news here. The first thing is that the tush push is here to stay. The Philadelphia Eagles' favorite play is not banned by the NFL. It looked like for a while there that the NFL was gearing up to potentially ban this play, which would have potentially benefited the Washington Commanders, because you got to play the Philadelphia Eagles at least twice a year, and this is the play that they go to in short yardage situations and at the goal line. So not seeing it being able to be used would have been a disadvantage for the Philadelphia Eagles, which would have been good news for the Washington Commanders. But if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I'm not sure that this is that big of a deal. I think that the Eagles probably still would have ran a ton of QB sneaks, even if people weren't allowed to push Jalen Hurts in the back and propel him forward. So, I think that this is something where it's going to be in the game, and that's perfectly fine by me. In fact, I like that the Eagles don't have the excuse anymore when the Commanders win this division next year. I cannot wait for the excuses to come, but that excuse is not going to be a ban of the tush push. Then some more bad news here from Jordan Schultz, where he says All-Pro wide receiver Terry McLaurin was not at practice today as offseason workouts continue. He had been a full participant previously and is entering the final year of his contract, worth monitoring as Phase 3 of Washington's program kicks off in under a week. And OTAs are right around the corner for the Washington Commanders, and we will be tracking whether or not Scary Terry is at those practices when the helmets go on next week for Commanders OTAs. But just like the tush push thing, I'm not too worried about this at all. Terry was there for most of Phase 1 and Phase 2 already, and these things are voluntary, man. And we know that the contract situation is what it is right now, and I'm sure that Terry might even do some posturing this offseason, kind of making it seem like, hey, you got to pay me my money, all this different stuff. I just feel a very high sense of confidence, guys, that the Washington Commanders are going to get a deal done here. Terry loves playing for the Commanders. The Commanders love Terry being their number one wide receiver. They're not going to, trade him away. That's not going to happen. They're trying to win a Super Bowl now. They're going to eventually come to a deal with Terry McLaurin. So with all this hoopla that's going to be happening here over the next several weeks, and we're going to be covering it here on this channel, I just want you guys to not get too worked up or too concerned about it, because I think at the end of the day, a deal is going to be struck between the Commanders and Terry McLaurin this offseason. Then a final bit of potentially bad news here is that the Washington Commanders will be featured on HBO's in-season version of Hard Knocks along with the other 3 teams in the NFC East. Last year, they shifted to the divisional format there with in-season Hard Knocks, where they featured the AFC North. Now they're shifting to the NFC East, and this is going to be a fun ride, man. You got the Commanders with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn in their second year. You got the Giants with a really interesting quarterback situation, and then their head coach and GM are on the hot seat. The Eagles are coming off a Super Bowl, and the Dallas Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys, right? Whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and I can't wait to see it in front of a national audience here. But But, I think that when you look at this kind of situation with the Commanders being on Hard Knocks, it's another potential disadvantage for Washington this year and another potential distraction for the Commanders this year because they already have a ton of nationally televised games that are at night that kind of messes up with the players' normal schedule during the week. And now that they have this to deal with as well with Hard Knocks cameras, being in the building, it's just another thing that the Commanders are going to have to deal with here. But I think the fair aspect of this is that all three of the other teams in the division have to deal with it. At least that aspect of it is fair, where every single team in this division is going to have to deal with the cameras and the distraction of Hard Knocks being in the building. And as a fan, I'm really excited to see Dan Quinn and see Jaden Daniels and get that look behind the curtain. But from a football perspective, it's been pretty well documented that these teams feel like this is a pretty big distraction, which obviously isn't ideal for a team trying to propel themselves to Super Bowl contention in 2025 like the Commanders are. We did a video yesterday on how the NFL is screwing the Washington Commanders in 2025. I break down all my reasonings for that in that video. I'll put the link to that video in the comments and description of today's show so you guys can check that one out. But what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Is being on Hard Knocks a good or bad thing for the Washington Commanders this year? Type G if you think it's good, or type B if you think it's bad. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. Well, I'm telling you about Fanatics today. Let me know if you think Hard Knocks for the Commanders this year is a good or bad thing. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where you guys can pick up a brand new Jaden Daniels Commanders jersey if you haven't already. And if you haven't gotten a Jaden Daniels jersey yet, guys, what are we doing? This guy is the next superstar quarterback of this franchise. I have a very good feeling that the next time this organization hoists a Lombardi trophy, he is going to be the one hoisting it. And if you guys want a jersey that you're going to be able to wear for the rest of your life as a Washington Commanders fan, you can get that today with this Jaden Daniels jersey when you go to chatsports.com/Daniels. And then also another benefit of this is it helps out the show, because if you click our link, chatsports.com/Daniels, and you make a purchase with our friends at Fanatics today, Fanatics kicks us part of the proceeds of that purchase. So it helps us out. It helps you out because you get that Jaden Daniels jersey. So I'd really appreciate if you go to chatsports.com/Daniels and get that jersey today if you're already planning on getting a JD5 jersey for your collection. So now let's shift our focus here to a couple of Bleacher Report free agency targets that have been linked to the Washington Commanders in a new article from Bleacher Report. First up, Za'Darius Smith, the edge rusher, formerly with the Detroit Lions last season. This is what Mo Moton, the Bleacher Report author here, had to say in this article. When the Detroit Lions needed to shore up their pass rush after Aiden Hutchinson suffered a fractured fibula and tibia, they acquired Za'Darius Smith from the Cleveland Browns. Smith filled the role adequately, logging 15 pressures and 4 sacks and 8 outings with the Lions. At 32, Smith will likely draw interest from teams that need a designated closer on the edge. Based on his half-season production with the Lions, he can fill that role. The Commanders have Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Ferrell set to bookend their defensive line. Smith would be their best pass rusher. And I completely agree with Moton here that if they sign Za'Darius Smith today, he would be their number one edge rusher. And I'd be perfectly cool with this move, guys. He is somebody that's been in this league a long time. He's probably looking to try and win Super Bowls at this point in his career. And he would be the best pass rusher on an NFL team if he signed with the Washington Commanders. I'm sure that's very appealing to him. So if the Commanders show interest in him, I do think that he would be more than willing to even take a discount to come play for the Washington Commanders. Now, obviously, I would rather have Trey Hendrickson. He's younger than Za'Darius Smith is. He's more productive than he is. If you want to get kind of that superstar level player for your defense for the next half decade plus, Trey Hendrickson is going to be more of that type of guy. Za'Darius Smith is more of a Band-Aid and more of a short-term solution at this position. So if you can get Trey Hendrickson, that's absolutely the move that I would make. But if that move becomes unlikely at any point during the offseason and you feel like you just got to address this position with somebody that you feel can be your number one edge rusher this year, I think Za'Darius is somebody that can certainly fill that role for the Burgundy and Gold. Then the other free agent that was linked to the Commanders in this article is wide receiver Amari Cooper. This one was very interesting to me, and this is what Moten had to say about the former Pro Bowl receiver. Even though Cooper is coming off a down year, largely because of injuries, he's still a technical route runner. Also, the veteran savvy receiver saw a notable increase in his catch rate after the Cleveland Browns traded him to the Buffalo Bills, improving from 45.3 to 62.5%. In a decent quarterback situation, Cooper can be a 1,000-plus yard receiver. If Cooper prefers to play with a young quarterback like Josh Allen, the Washington Commanders could be an option if the interest is mutual. So I do think Amari Cooper would be an interesting addition for the Washington Commanders if they ended up doing that. And, on paper, Amari Cooper is a better receiver right now than Noah Brown is. All right. So if you just want to max out this wide receiver room for 2025, I do think Cooper is an upgrade to Noah Brown. But, I do think that because he's a former number one receiver in this league and still a bona fide number two, he's going to want to get paid like that, all right? And because he's getting to this point in the offseason, I'm sure it won't be that lucrative, but I do think that he would want at least like $15, maybe $20 million on a one-year deal, and I just don't know if Washington is going to be willing to give that to Amari Cooper. Like, is he that much of an upgrade to Noah Brown? Like, would you really, take away your opportunity of potentially getting a guy like Trey Hendrickson or an edge rusher this offseason just to sign another receiver? I don't know if that's necessarily something that the Washington Commanders are really looking into, but hey, if you can get him for the right contract number and the right price on a one-year deal, he is absolutely still somebody that can be a legit number two receiver on the outside. He is big. He can get open to all levels of the field with his foot quickness and route running proficiency. He's been a number one receiver in this league for a long time, and even though he did take a step back last year, I still think he's more than capable, now that he's back to fully healthy, of being a legit number two receiver in the National Football League. And hey, if the Commanders sign him, I will absolutely be excited about it. Now let me know down there in the comment section, would you sign Amari Cooper to be the next wide receiver 2 here in Washington? And by the way, yes, I understand Deebo Samuel is here, but he's more of a gadget type of receiver than a true number 2 guy on the outside. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. S for sign or P for pass. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more Commanders content that will be coming your way later this week. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders. All right, Joey, first segment in the books. Coming up next is the way too early 2026 mock draft roundup, where all the top NFL draft analysts are making their predictions for who the Commanders are going to be looking for in round 1 next year. What are some of the positions that you think the Commanders are probably going to be searching for in round 1 next year?
I think most likely you got to think edge and linebacker and
running back, maybe
running back, maybe safety.
Maybe safety. Yeah, those are certainly positions.
Probably not early, but
I will say on the next video here, there's only 2 positions that the top guys are projecting for the Commanders. So there's really 2 positions that are the favorites for the Commanders heading into next offseason. But also, we have the Commanders Report live Q&A coming up here after this next segment. So if you haven't gotten your question in yet, go ahead and get your question in. All right, if you got a question about the free agents that are still out there, if you have a question about the Trey Hendrickson situation, if you have a question about OTAs that are going to begin next week, if you have a question about Terry McLaurin's situation, don't be afraid and don't be shy. Get your question down there in the live chat. All you have to do is put your question down in the live chat room with hashtag Commanders as a part of the post. All right, so that's all you have to do. And of course, if you guys want to get on the mailbag today and guarantee that you get on the mailbag, you guys can super chat any dollar amount to make sure you get on the show. So, Joey, I think that we should just get right into our next segment here.
Let's do it.
While people continue to get their questions in. We still got 150 people watching live around the world. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in to the Commanders Report live show. Let's get into our next segment right now, the way too early draft projections for the Washington Commanders in 2026. It's never too early to talk draft here on the Commanders Report, as today we're going to be taking a look at all the top, quote-unquote, way too early mock drafts for the 2026 NFL Draft and who the top draft analysts are projecting for the Washington Commanders to take in round 1 of next year's NFL draft. Now, obviously, things are going to change from now until the draft next spring, guys. There's still a lot of football that needs to be played, and a lot of times, the people that are being put as potential first-round picks in these way too early mocks end up not even going in round 1 when it's all said and done. But I think it is important here to kind of look at some of the players that some of these draft analysts are looking at for this team, and so that Commanders fans can really know which players they should be keeping their eye on when college football ramps up again in the fall. Now, before we get into the video today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We have daily Commanders videos on this channel that are informative, in-depth, and free. We also have breaking news coverage of the Commanders trade for like Trey Hendrickson this offseason. We'll be live for you guys on this channel. We have over 41,000 people that have already clicked that subscribe button here at the Commanders Report. We're one of the fastest growing channels here at Chat Sports, and that's all thanks to you guys. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already to join the Commanders Report family today. So let's start with Dane Brugler, one of the more respected draft analysts in the draft space from the Athletic, who have the Commanders taking a Whit Weeks, an off-ball linebacker from LSU, with their first-round selection next year. This is what Brugler had to say about the Tiger linebacker. Weeks was a tackling machine for the Tigers last season and looked like a future early-round pick. He suffered a dislocated ankle in LSU's bowl game, but he'll hopefully return to his 2024 form early this upcoming season. And that injury 2 weeks is definitely something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on as one of our NFL draft analysts here at Chat Sports, because if he doesn't look the same, that draft value for him is definitely going to go down. But last year, 120 tackles and 3.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles from an off-ball linebacker. He is somebody that brings some really good, coverage ability as well from a linebacker. And, he, as far as potential first-round linebackers go, he's certainly going to be in that conversation if he continues to play well on film with the LSU Tigers this fall. Then, speaking of off-ball linebackers, this is becoming a theme here already. Jason McIntyre from Fox Sports projects that the Commanders will take Anthony Hill, another off-ball linebacker, this time from the University of Texas. This is what McIntyre and J-Mac had to say about the Longhorn off-ball backer. Bobby Wagner was excellent in 2024 for Washington, but can we expect the nearly 35-year-old to do that again? Hill goes into next season as the premier inside linebacker in college football. And you guys can see last year put up some great numbers, particularly as a blitzer, which really is going to intrigue Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn, who love their off-ball linebackers to blitz. They do it all the time with Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. And Hill last year had 8 sacks for the Longhorns, so he can certainly get after quarterbacks. He also had 4 forced fumbles, so he has the ability to really be an impact player from this position. So if the Commanders are really looking for that long-term Bobby Wagner replacement, let's say he retires next offseason, Hill is certainly somebody that could be going in kind of the later portion in round 1, right around where the Commanders are going to be picking, and certainly somebody that's going to be on the Commanders' radar. And I definitely think that off-ball linebacker is expected to be a top priority. We'll see how Dominique Hampton kind of develops this year. Guys like Tyler Owens, that's going to be playing potentially a bandit safety type of role in this type of defense, similar to what Jeremy Chin ran in this defense last year. We'll see how Kane Medrano plays this year. We'll see about Jordan McGee, who was a late-round draft pick for them last year. They've got some younger pieces in this kind of room that could develop this next season that makes this need for a Bobby Wagner replacement obsolete come next spring. But if none of those guys really come to the forefront and then Wagner, say, retires, then I definitely think interior linebacker is going to be something that's going to be at the top of the list of priorities for the Commanders to get done next offseason. So coming up here on the Commanders Report, the other top priority, we are going to take a look at 2 more way too early mock drafts where they once again have a position where they both take a player at that positional group. But before we get into that, we reveal who that final positional need is that we'll talk about on today's show. Let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks, which is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and you can also turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the Takes-Two ticket sweepstakes, where you could get you and a +1 a trip to the championship. So sign up today and get $50 instantly, and you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can get your lineups in on Prize Picks now, and this is what it would look like, guys. On your phone, you take the more or the less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. In this one, we are taking the more on three-pointers made per game average in the Eastern Conference Finals for Jalen Brunson of the New York Knickerbockers, and we're going to take the less on those three-pointers made per game for Mikal Bridges, and we'll take the less on Tyrese Halliburton for that same category as well. So if you guys want to get in on the action today, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So the Pro Football Focus in their way too early mock draft have the Commanders taking LT Overton, the edge rusher from Alabama. He was their top edge rusher last year for the Crimson Tide, and this is what Pro Football Focus's team has to say about this pick. Overton is one of the more versatile and well-rounded defensive linemen returning to college football. He posted an 81.7 PFF run defense grade along with a 77.6 PFF pass rush grade in 2024. He also led the Crimson Tide by a wide margin with 39 pressures and generated an 18% pass rush win rate. And last year, Overton didn't have a ton of sack production there, just 2 sacks, but he did have a ton of pressure production. So keep your eye on LT Overton this fall with the Crimson Tide, because he certainly got the physical pedigree to be a first-round pick, 42 tackles last year and a forced fumble. He's a good run defender as well, which is important for Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. From an edge rusher in this Washington Commanders scheme. Plus, he's got some good size, which is also important to them in terms of having an early down role in their 4 down front. 283 pounds is a pretty decent size of man right there, and Overton certainly brings that as a bigger edge rusher type of player. Then another player that this time Jordan Reed from ESPN, somebody that I really respect as a draft analyst, has Mateo. I'm going to give this my best shot here, guys. Ugalele. Goodness gracious, I definitely butchered that. The edge rusher out of Oregon is certainly somebody that's going to be an interesting name to keep your eye on during the college football season this year. This is what Reed had to say about the Duck edge rusher. I'm not even going to say the last name again, guys, but took a major step forward as a sophomore in 2024 with 10.5 sacks and 13 tackles for loss. At 6'5" and 270 pounds, he is a versatile edge rusher who already has an established repertoire of pass rush moves. Coach Dan Quinn would love him rushing the passer in D.C. And kind of like Overton here, this guy from Oregon, he's got some nice size to him as well. 270 pounds, so he can play a true defensive end in the Commanders' 4-2 base system here, where they kind of base out of nickel. And, he got the 10.5 sacks last year, so his sack production was a lot better than LT Overton's last year. He had 2 forced fumbles, 38 tackles. He's a decent run defender, but what he's really known for is his versatility as a pass rusher with his ability to beat you in a number of different ways. So I do think that this is certainly somebody that will be on the Commanders' radar next year at the edge rusher position. But at the end of the day here, guys, it's certainly a possibility that the Commanders don't land, a top flight edge rusher that they lock up for the next several seasons, someone like a Trey Hendrickson in a trade this offseason. If that's the case and that they still fail to land one by the trade deadline or in free agency next offseason, round 1 edge is once again going to be on the table for the Washington Commanders. Now, I think that this defense values, true one-on-one dominant type of edge rushers less than maybe a different style of defense because of how many stunts and games and loops that the Washington Commanders like to run with Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. calling the plays here. They like to generate pressure with deception instead of one-on-one dominance more often than not, which is why they haven't really prioritized this position in their early tenure here with the Washington Commanders. But certainly, if you get a player that you feel can be a truly special player at one of the more premium positions in the National Football League, I don't think the Commanders can spend another season passing on that. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. what is going to be the biggest need for the Washington Commanders heading into next offseason? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section to finish up today's show. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's program. I'll catch you guys later with more Commanders content as the week progresses. And until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders. All right, so we got one more segment to go here, which is the mailbag. So, Joey, let's put a little. How are we doing on questions? Let's just start off here.
We're doing fine. We've gotten some from people I haven't really seen before, so that's great. We got some new people in here.
Welcome. Yeah, feel free. If you've never put a question on the show before, put one in today. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Joey, prioritize the ones that haven't gotten questions on the show before.
Okay.
All right, so if you haven't had a question on the show before, get one on the show for free today. Use hashtag Commanders down there in the live chat. Ask anything that you want. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
We've got like 7 or 8.
All right, so let's just do a 2-minute shot clock here.
Great.
2 minutes. I want to get last call for questions. I want to give people an opportunity to get their questions in if they have one. But you guys got 2 minutes to get your questions in. And Joey, what are your thoughts on the guys that we talked about there in the last video?
I can't say I'm too familiar with, honestly, really any of them. I think edge rusher is probably going to be where Washington goes. The thing is that sucks.
And that's what we were saying this year, and they didn't.
That's fair. The thing that's so unfortunate about being so good is a lot of times the players that fall to you late in the draft are it's just hard. It's hard to get not excited about those guys, but they're not the best players in the draft. The reason they're falling to the late 20s, and I expect Washington to probably be there again.
Which is also why, if you do want to get like a premium player, you can probably get one at a lower value position like off-ball linebacker.
Yeah. Or
safety. Like I think safety and linebacker are 2 positions to really keep your eye on next year. Also, running back is one that can't be – I would say running back is probably going to be not a round 1 position for the Commanders because, they got Jaden Daniels. He's going to be the focal point of the offense. You can get a good running back prospect in just about any draft class in the middle rounds, and it's a lower value position. Unless you can get, a truly special running back to pair with Jaden Daniels and make it like a Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry type of situation, I probably wouldn't take a running back in round 1, but – I think that, obviously it's way too early to have this conversation, yada, yada, yada. Get us to 2025 before we start talking about 2026, right? But, I think these conversations are interesting. It's always good to know which players you should be keeping your eye out for as college football approaches to kind of make, your college football viewing experience even more exciting as a Washington Commanders fan, watching players on Saturdays that could be playing for you on Sundays. So that's why we did that video. It looks like the timer ran out, and it looks like we got quite a few questions to get to today. So can't wait to get to your questions today. So without further ado, let's get into the mailbag right now. It is the Commanders Report mailbag here by Chat Sports. I love doing this segment every single week, guys, because I get to have that two-way conversation with you guys. The other 6 videos we do on a weekly basis here on this channel is just me pretty much talking at you guys. I like this video because you guys get to be a part of the conversation. And we film this every single Wednesday on our Commanders Report live show. So if you guys want to get a question on a future edition of the Commanders Report mailbag, you guys can click that subscribe button if you haven't already and join the most interactive community of Commanders fans anywhere else on YouTube. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And of course, join us every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time to get your questions on the weekly mailbags. All right, so we'll start here with Royal Williams. It says, do you see a path for us to still acquire Trey Hendrickson? Absolutely there's still a path. Right now Hendrickson and the Bengals seem to really be at an impasse. The Bengals kind of have an offer out to Hendrickson. They've had an offer out to him for a long time, and it's definitely less than like the $35 million mark that we've seen guys like Max Crosby get this offseason, Danielle Hunter get this offseason, and Hendrickson wants to be making that kind of money. Now, Hendrickson has said he doesn't need to be making Myles Garrett level of money. He just wants to get paid kind of what the market rate is, and the market rate right now is like $35 million per season. It seems like the Bengals are not willing to give him that, and Hendrickson's kind of pissed about it. In fact, I think what Hendrickson's really pissed about is the Bengals just haven't been communicating with him. Essentially, they pretty much just gave him an offer and said, take it or leave it. And if you don't show up to mandatory minicamp, we're going to fine your ass. And like he's not particularly too happy with the way that the Bengals have kind of gone about that situation. So is it possible that this situation gets so bad and the Commanders are like, hey, we'll give you our first-round pick next year if you give us your second-round pick, and we'll even throw in like Dorrance Armstrong in a deal for Trey Hendrickson? I could certainly see the Bengals potentially coming to the table on that type of deal this offseason. Obviously, that means the Commanders would have to give Hendrickson the money that he wants on a new contract, but with 17 and a half sacks over the last 2 years, he's been an absolute menace, and he'd be a perfect fit in this Commanders defense, in my opinion. I think it'd be more than worth the price tag to go and get him this offseason. Then we got one from Corey. Says, do you think J.K. Dobbins is what we need? I'm not a fan of him. I'm not a fan of the way he consistently gets injured, Corey, that's for sure. I like him on the field, all right? He can run in between the tackles. He can make explosive plays happen. When he's on the field, he's great, all right? And he had some good moments last year for the Los Angeles Chargers as well. But he is injured all the time, and it sounds like he's asking to be paid quite a bit. There's been a report out there from the People's Insider, Slick Rick, that says that the Houston Texans are interested in Dobbins, but Dobbins wants too much money. And that's why, they're not close on a deal at this point. So it seems like Dobbins doesn't want to sign with the team unless the team's willing to give him quite a bit of money. And I don't think the Commanders are willing to do that at all. I don't think he's that much of an improvement from Brian Robinson Jr., where I'm willing to pay him a large sum for a running back. And I think that this running back room is perfectly fine. I think B-Rob is just fine. I think Austin Eckler is just fine. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I'm excited about his future. You still got Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez Jr., two perfectly fine depth pieces as well. And let's face it, guys, at the end of the day, Jaden Daniels in the passing game and also Jaden Daniels being a part of the run game, that's going to be the main focal point of the offense for a long time. So, if they add Dobbins for, vet minimum or something close to that, I'd be excited about it. I think Dobbins is an explosive player when he's healthy, but am I scratching and clawing and, pounding the table to go get J.K. Dobbins when we already have a decent running back room? No, absolutely not. Then we got on from Mikey Suze 4. I hope I'm saying that right. It says, what'll be the best record you see for this season? I think the ceiling for this team is somewhere around 13 wins. And with the schedule that the Commanders have, it's a tough schedule. I think that, if they can win 13 games, that would be a very big accomplishment, okay? Because you got some tough games on this schedule. You got a really tough division here in the NFC East with Dallas adding George Pickens. You got, of course, the reigning Super Bowl champions twice in 3 weeks at the end of the year. The Giants are never easy. I mean, the Commanders almost lost to them twice last year when they were terrible. They've definitely improved this offseason. And then you got like the Chargers on the road. You've got, you got Chicago when they're coming off a bye. You've got Detroit again. Like, you've got a lot of tough games this year, but I do think that the Commanders have a very good football team. I think Jaden Daniels will take yet another step. I have him as one of my early favorites to win league MVP this year. I think Terry's going to play well. I think Debo's going to play well. I think this defense maybe won't be a top 10 unit, but will certainly be serviceable. And, this offense is going to be electric again. So I think that they could win anywhere between 10 and 13 games, somewhere in that range. I think, a reasonable expectation is 11 or 12, kind of where they were last year. And a reasonable expectation is for them to get around where they were in the playoffs last year, around the NFC title game, if not making the Super Bowl. I think after last season, the expectation this year is Super Bowl or bust, and that's perfectly fine by me with a quarterback as good as Jaden Daniels. But yeah, I would say probably the highest I could see the Commanders winning this year is probably 13 games. Now it's crystal ball time. Let me know down there in the comments section. Predict the Washington Commanders' record for 2025 down there in the comments section. How many games do you think this team wins this year? My official prediction right now is 11 wins, but I think they could get up to 13. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time by letting me know what's going to be the Commanders' record here in 2025. Then we got one from Keith. Says the Commanders' offense will be explosive regardless with Jaden behind center. My opinion, the extra money we have on free agency should be spent on defense. Thoughts? Yeah, it was explosive last year with, definitely a worse supporting cast at the wide receiver position. Deebo Samuel is the best piece on offense outside of Terry McLaurin that they had anywhere else on this team last year. You have a lot more continuity as well because it's Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury's second year here. So Jaden should feel even more comfortable. Like, this offense should have no problems. And I think, your thinking there is pretty sound there, Keith, where, you spend the money that you have left on potentially someone in the pass to rush the passer. Whether that's Trey Hendrickson, whether that's Za'Darius Smith, whether that's Von Miller, whether that's somebody else. There's still quite a few good edge rushers still out there, by the way, that are gettable. But, I think that it would be smart to spend that money on defense. Some people talk about running back, some people talk about wide receiver. And would I necessarily hate it if they spend some money at wide receiver or running back this year to make the offense better? No. But if it comes at the cost of getting another edge rusher, that's when I think those decisions become bad ones. Then we go on from It's Torch, says, Jack, how big of a leap you see Jordan McGee taking this upcoming year? Well, he's an undersized linebacker, so we'll see. These kind of second-year players that are day 3 picks, sometimes they work out and they develop after a full offseason, and sometimes they don't. Obviously, it would be great if he does. If he does, you got another player in this group that's going to be a future starter and a contributor for a long time. And if he doesn't, then, hopefully Kane Medrano or somebody else, comes up the ranks. Maybe Dominique Hampton finds a role for himself in this room, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how the linebackers behind Frankie Luvu and Bobby Wagner play this year, because I think that's going to determine whether or not this team is looking for off-ball linebackers in free agency and in the draft in the years to come. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already, if you like today's video and you are a real one. Before we get to the rest of today's questions, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where you guys can get a brand new Jaden Daniels jersey in your closet today by just going to chatsports.com/Daniels and making a purchase. Also, our friends at Fanatics will give us part of the proceeds if you make a purchase using that link. So if you guys want to help us out here at the channel and you want to help yourself out by getting a Jaden Daniels jersey that, let's face it, you're probably going to be able to wear the rest of your life. He's going to be a Commanders legend. Go to chatsports.com/Daniels to pick it up today. Got one from Eli Hokies fan. It seems like Eli is always getting a question on these mailbags, so shout out to Eli. It says, who will get the most interceptions this season? Marshawn Lattimore, Michael Davis, Trey Amos, or Quan Martin? Well, definitely not Michael Davis, because I guess we can ask the question about Michael Davis, but he's not on the team anymore. Marshawn Lattimore, certainly somebody that can be locked down when he is healthy. I think that interceptions are a lot about opportunities, so it's kind of hard to kind of answer this question, Eli. But if I had to guess, it's a tough question because, like I said, it depends on the opportunities that they have. The quarterback has to throw the ball in their general vicinity for them to even have shots at interceptions. But you know what I'm going to say? I'm actually going to say Quan Martin as the free safety of this football team. I feel like his ability to read the quarterback's eyes and, move quickly is going to be something that puts him in position to make some interceptions this year. So if I'm going to guess right now, I'm going to say Quan Martin leads this group in interceptions next year. JG says, since you're on a way too early theme, who is your early pick for the 2025 NFC Rookies of the Year? So offensive and defensive. Man, it's not just NFC, right? It's just NFL offensive and defensive Rookies of the Year. But, Ashton Jeanty is obviously the favorite to be Offensive Rookie of the Year this year in the NFL. But somebody to keep your eye out here for is Caleb Johnson from the Steelers. He's a really, really good fit for their outside zone run scheme, and he's going to be able to, get a lot of run pretty much right away. So I think he's going to have a monster season as well, but Jeanty's going to be like the focal point of their offense. So I'd probably say Jeanty is the favorite there. And then when it comes to the defensive Rookie of the Year this year, there's a lot of good players in this year's class, man. And I know Commanders fans might want me to say Trey Amos here, but as a number 2 corner, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get that trophy. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Mike Green with the Baltimore Ravens, man, or Malachi Starks. Those 2 players are awesome players that are ready to go right away. I can't believe the NFL let Mike Green get to the Baltimore Ravens in round 2. So, yeah, man, I think one of those 2 guys has a great shot at getting that trophy. Andrew 2.0 says, do you think the Commanders are going to sign Von Miller or Za'Darius Smith? It's certainly possible, Andrew. I think the reason why they haven't signed one of those guys yet is because they're still pursuing Trey Hendrickson. And I don't think that they want to give up on pursuing Hendrickson via trade because they see how the Hendrickson situation in Cincinnati is kind of not in a good place right now. So, if Hendrickson signs a new deal to stay in Cincinnati, I think very quickly we see the Commanders sign one of these veteran edge rushers. But we'll see what ends up happening here. They went into the season last year with a pretty lackluster edge rusher group, and we were kind of sitting there all offseason for them to pick up an edge rusher, and they didn't. So I hate to break it to some Commanders fans out there, guys, but it's absolutely a possibility the Commanders like their edge rusher room as currently constructed. All right, so I just want to throw that out there as a possibility, even though personally I would certainly want to add a designated pass rusher to this group. So shout out your guy down there in the comments section. Name a free agent that you want the Commanders to sign this offseason still. There's still some good names out there, especially at the wide receiver and edge rusher positions. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section to finish up today's show. That'll be it for today's program here on the Commanders Report. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and join us every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time to get your questions on the weekly Commanders Report mailbags. All right, Joseph.
Hey, we actually we got a super chat.
We got a super chat.
We did. I will get it up here on the screen.
By the way, Cassie is watching the show. She let me know 30 minutes ago that she made it to Goodhue, Minnesota. She made it. She's going to go watch her sister play some softball, and she's going to be graduating from high school. So shout out to Emma. I'm going to be going to visit those guys in next week. But in the meantime, here, I'm all alone in my apartment here in Dallas, Texas, for the next week or so. So shout out to Cassie. Then we got Royal Williams, $5. What's up, Royal? Says, Jack, you're the man for picking my question and bonus points. Well, Joey, shout out Joey, because Joey's the one that picks the questions, Royal. So thanks for the compliment, but Joey's the one that deserves the praise there. Says, pronouncing my name correctly.
That's all you.
That is all me. I mean, how do some people say it? Royal. I mean, I just don't know any other way to say it, Royal.
Well, and Royal, the funny thing is Jack Sperry's not known for his pronouncing.
No, we have seen on today's show that especially the Hawaiian and Samoan names, I struggle because there's a lot of vowels.
There are
just swimming around in those names, and it can be tough. But we figure it out eventually, especially if they become Commanders, right? So that'll be it for today's show. Joey, got any other questions or any comments you wanna bring up here before we head out?
I don't think so, man. We're going to be staying on Trey Hendrickson watch. It is the dead time of the year. It's
and the thing about that kind of thing is you never know when something could go down.
Exactly. So. Could happen in 5 minutes right after we get off. It could happen in 5 weeks.
Months.
Yeah, so
could happen at the deadline. It could happen at a bunch of different spots.
Yeah, we'll keep it out for you guys. Keep an eye out, and when it happens, we'll be here.
All right, man, that'll be it for us this week. Again, we have these live shows every single Wednesday, so if you want a place to come hang out, talk some Commanders football, and have a good time, make some jokes, crack some laughs, all that stuff, me and Joey are here to oblige. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll see you guys next week, and of course, we'll have more Commanders content throughout the rest of this week. So make sure you click that subscribe button, check out those videos that come out later this week, and until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders.